hanging out, about to make it last. We're hanging in the studio for the North Coast podcast. It's feeling good saying hey with RJ. I'm not about to Ralph, but Lukey, what's good today?
You wanna know what's good? Well, let me Dougie tell you. I came over here, yeah, you know I did it well, yeah. What is good today? It's rainy outside. I didn't like that one bit. I had to take a ride. Had to ride in my car to here. I had to park it on the street and I did not have fear. No parking zone, don't pee me in a hydrant. Don't want to do that, you want to hear me rant.
Luke, you talking about the ride that you had to take today. I have to say what I did was sit on my couch and play some video games, and I stared up at the rain, and staying inside makes me insane, man. I couldn't go outside, not in the pouring. I'm inside watching TV, falling asleep and snoring. Yeah, but it's alright, cause now it's feeling better, and for the next 3 days we're gonna have great weather.
What you do today? What you do today? What you do today? How about you? What you do today? What you do today? What you do today? How about you? Today I was in Staten Island. I went over the ferry to the island. I was sailing, I wasn't flying. Got caught in the rain, but I was drying. I was in Staten Island walking up the hills. I was in Staten Island trying to find a thrill. You can't find no thrill on the island of Staten. So I ran my ass way back to Manhattan. Hey, what you do today? What you do today? What you do today? How about you? What you do today? What you do today? What you do today? How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I came in on a 737. Yo, I was feeling like I'm going to heaven, cause I got my musical up in Kansas City.
Hey.
Yo, it's Alice's Wonderland. It's like a video game, like RJ has said. Yo, she dives into the computer and does her thing. You cannot refute her. She is a programmer, designs the video. She does it so cool, old man Remy. So, my girl and I wanna get a dog named Remy. So that was what was on my mind.
What you do today? What you do? What you do today? How about you?
How about you?
What you do today? What you do? What you do today? How about you?
How about you?
Welcome to the studio for the North Coast podcast. We have a very special guest today. You can currently catch him on Broadway in Hamilton the Musical, but he's also producing Alice's Wonderland, right?
Alice's Wonderland.
Alice's Wonderland in Kansas City. Welcome to the studio, James Quinton Johnson. Thanks for hanging.
Eyebrows looking great, looking flush.
You know what I'm saying? Just like I got to get that tea tree oil on them. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, it's the black secret. Yes,
What?
Yeah. You ever heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it does. I didn't know.
What does it do for eyebrows?
Supposedly, it's supposed to make them fuller, grow fuller.
Oh, so it's like a Rogaine for eyebrows.
That is a great analogy.
What is your Q? Do you have like do you have a specific grooming regimen? Some like oils or exfoliating tactics for the face, special things that you would suggest to others.
Yeah, I didn't for the longest time, and then my fiance said, "You need to have a routine.
Whoa!
I will not marry you if you do not adopt
Wow.
What an
a
ultimatum.
sensible facial routine."
Yeah.
So I don't really know the names of anything that I use now, but my morning routine is 5 times longer than it was before my fiance.
Yo.
So
How long is 5 times longer, just so I know for my reference?
I used to be able to get ready in about 10 minutes from like bed to out the door.
Right.
Whoa.
So it's about
That's
an
fast.
hour now.
It's
An hour?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
wait,
no, I
50
mean-
minutes of that is skincare?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a
Whoa.
10-minute shower and then,
Yeah, okay.
brush your teeth in 2.
Right.
And then each cream, retinol. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But like the first thing is I got to do, my ingrown. I got to do an ingrown serum to keep the bumps away.
Right.
And then after that, I think she recommends the retinol for evenness of tone.
Oh, okay.
And then I think I have to have a moisturizer after that.
Mhm.
And then I'm up to my sunscreen.
Mhm.
Got to have sunscreen. I think I'm missing one in there. But that's the base.
Exfoliation, moisturization.
Maybe in the shower I'll do a scrub. Yeah,
Okay,
I'll do a
okay.
scrub in the shower.
Nice. Wow. So you're going in. You got your checklist.
Yeah.
Two
That's
questions.
nice.
And I don't know if it does that much of a difference.
Okay, that's my first question. Are you
She's
noticing
happy.
a difference? And are you enjoying this? Are there, or which parts of it do you enjoy the difference?
I don't know that for the amount of work I'm doing that I'm getting enough difference. You know what I mean? But I don't know. It's any chance that you get to luxuriate is nice.
Take care of
Self-care.
yourself.
You know?
Self-care,
Yeah.
right.
Some people have a smoke break. You have a facial cream break.
A
I think a lot of people have a facial
beginning of the day. Like it has to be at least my 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Like layers of paint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just going
And they
on.
each got to dry. They
They
got to
each have to
soak
dry.
in. Like you
Yeah.
got to. So
Sure,
you're just
sure.
kind of sitting
Primer.
there. Like,
Some
Yeah.
people you
Little
look at
primer.
him like if you look at Pharrell, you're like maybe it's worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Pharrell looks great.
He looks great.
insane.
Great.
Yeah.
Are you doing this in silence or are you doing this with music on?
Sometimes music, but I mean, because I've been so deep in preparation for Alice's Wonderland, because I'm getting ready to direct it in Austin, Texas, coming up in a few days.
Okay.
I try to leave that silence in the air for my brain to kind of, mash together ideas.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about your show. Speaking of Alice's Wonderland.
Yeah.
So it's currently in production in
Mhm.
Kansas City.
Yeah, at the Coterie Theater. Yeah.
What was it?
The Coterie Theater.
The Coterie
Kansas.
Theater. That's
Coterie.
awesome. One of our members, I just sent her there. She's living in Kansas City now. I was like, you got to go check out this show. So congratulations on that run. That's very cool. And so it exists in a video game world,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So without me having heard any of the songs yet,
Yeah.
I was just curious, what was it like composing music for a video game world? Were
Mm-hmm.
you inspired by a lot of the famous video game composers who did like 8-bit composing and things like
yeah.
that?
There was the answer is yes, mostly, but I've like my journey as an anything maker has just kind of been, I'm a little bit of a fan of this, and I'm a little bit of a fan of this, and I'm a little bit of a fan of this. So as I start to make more things, the research is kind of coming on the back end of a lot of those things. So there was one true kind of video game 8-bit composer that I found in the research of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up playing video games, so I have the Mario thing in my head. I have Sega Genesis stuff. I mean, played tons of stuff on Sega, and so I'm just thinking about those frequencies or lack thereof, really, for some of those older systems, and just trying to figure out like, okay, how do I make something that feels like this, but then take advantage of the frequency spectrum that we're utilizing now.
Yeah.
And even a lot of it was story construction, because when I think back to some of the earlier really story-based games I was playing, like Ape Escape or Spyro the Dragon, there was something so cool with, you had this long-form story. Like if it's Spyro, you had to get all of the dragon eggs back. But like every 2 minutes, it's a Hunter the cheetah is saying, "Oh, Spyro, like I can't. Can you race me in the skateboard game or whatever it is?" Like you'd always have a story. So hundreds of stories really within the larger scope of it. So my way in was kind of in story construction was that, and then kind of going backwards and trying to learn more about 8-bit composition and how to highlight it, because we have transitions right now for each level that kind of are like, I found a synth and then like put a distortion plug-in on it, and now it sounds like it's an 8-bit thing.
Oh, cool.
But most of it really is, I mean, it's contemporary Billboard chart stuff. So I've avoided saying hip hop because I just think that with theater, it's like hip hop isn't a no word, obviously, but it's just like sometimes with theater, like you start throwing around hip hop and it's just like,
right.
it just gets real corny real fast.
Sure.
And it limits the show. Like the show there's some hip hop stuff, there's some gospel vocal arranging, There's some straight ahead pop in it for the Queen of Hearts. So
That's cool.
yeah, it's really a broad spectrum, and maybe I guess that kind of going back to the video game sense of it all. It's video games were just always so many layers to them.
For sure.
So and I wanted to bring that into the sonic tapestry of Alice as much as I could.
What kind of gamer were you? Because I played video games as a kid, but I've never been a gamer.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play something that you didn't have to have any skill to play.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
play like a basketball game,
Yeah.
or I do Grand Theft Auto
Yep.
and just like
Still got
punch
that.
people.
Just
Yeah.
go around and
That's
take
all I-
cars. And
Yeah,
things.
I don't
That's
follow any missions.
Yeah.
But I don't think or just like playing Street Fighter, I'm just mashing buttons. I
Right.
never bothered to learn anything, and
Yeah.
I would quit easily. If I had to do something more than once, I quit. What kind of gamer were you?
Somewhere in that realm, I think, because like I'm not a Twitch guy.
Okay.
Like I didn't stay with it enough to be really excited when streaming games like came out. I didn't catch that wave, but the few games, and I'm like a real simple man. So I would just play like the same, 3 or 4 games. Like it was Ape Escape, Spyro. Like for that first PlayStation, those were the only 2 games I had, and those are the only 2 I cared
PS1
about.
we're talking?
Yeah, PS1.
Okay, so do you
Yeah.
remember Parappa the Rapper?
Yes.
Hell yeah. So
Yes.
I brought that up earlier. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No,
A couple
crazy
people
cool.
didn't know what it was
Oh
earlier.
man, yeah, no, like I caught.
If you're gonna catch me, I'm sure you'll find the things I'll teach you. Sure to beat you, but nevertheless, you take a lesson from teaching.
Hey, yes,
Right on.
killer.
Fire.
Yeah.
Okay, so Spyro. Sorry for
Yeah,
the
no, it's like-
derail.
but those were the 2 that I played the most, and I think that I was determined to get those right. Even like I didn't really get to a place where I was trying to like beat games like 100% until maybe 5 years ago. I just didn't care. I didn't care to get every gem. I didn't care to get, every achievement on 3 stars or whatever it is. But I did have a persistence that like whatever it took to beat the basic story, I at least wanted to do that. And I remember getting very upset when I couldn't do that as a young person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there, so you talked about how like you played games when you were younger and then kind of like stopped a bit. I've been playing games like nonstop since I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And so I've latched on to like the Twitch community. Like 90% of the things I watch are like Twitch or
Wow.
YouTube streaming,
Man.
or
yeah.
pro wrestling is the other 10.
Nice.
Well, Great British Bake Off is like 2%.
Sweet.
And
Love it.
so like I've seen and been around for the transition, the formation of the transformation of music in video games. And how the story is being told in video games, and like how my maturity has changed over my life, and how when I look back at certain games and I thought it was like so mature, but now looking at like The Last of Us Part 2 and being like this story and the way that they just have atmospheric music and like just simple acoustic guitaring, it's like really puts you in the mood for that. So I grew up with that, and I have a few questions for you. So so one being, did you? I know you're drawing a lot on like the 8-bit type of music. Did you reach into like the present at all for any inspiration for music from video games?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of the like atmospheric pad stuff that we're doing for transitions, absolutely. Because like, what was the last one I played as I was kind of finishing out the performance tracks for Alice's Wonderland? I've been working on it for about 2 years now, so it's been interesting to see my influences over those 2 years. Because the last game I played before I was done with the performance tracks was this last God of War.
Oh yeah.
With and I played the first one years ago. The second one was like around in there somewhere. But this last one, it's got me so excited for the one coming, I think, in the fall.
Yeah, Ragnarok.
Yeah. And so what some of the stuff they're doing there, just with like the sound effects, you're punching, you're hitting somebody. I mean, what I really picked up on is, and Spider-Man, Miles Morales is one that I was playing too. You're running around and you're doing your thing, and you kind of have your baseline music that's happening, and then all of a sudden you won't even see anything. It's just and you're like, shit, who's here? Who's
in a battle now.
And so as a storyteller, I'm like, oh, how can I help a theatrical audience know? Maybe not that a battle is necessarily happening because we're not really doing the RPG moving around and then all of a sudden there's conflict. But like, how can I say, okay, here's a pad that's just D5 or whatever. And then if I'm adding more tone, if it's if it's a major third or a minor or whatever, it's like, how does that then shift my, like, because if I'm playing a game and something changes tempo and I'm now more anxious, how can I play with that same thing theatrically in a way that I don't know that I've seen yet in theater? It's kind of like truly songwriting, and then there's orchestration, but like, and two, thinking about like pop producers who are doing the same thing, whether they're aware of it or not, of truly like sonic painting. Like the first guy that comes to mind is John Bellion, because I just know he loves musicals, but like is such a like independent artist producer, and like I've been tracking a lot of the things that he's doing with Lawrence, and then like PJ Morton's last album, Watch the Sun. Like it's so cool to hear pop producers that are really thinking like musical theater composers. And mesh those two things, and then find where video game composers have been doing it for 30 years now, and how they're only, I mean, like you go to listen to something like Lightyear and you listen to that score and you're like, you look at that score and like the score for God of War and you're like, these are on par with each other. As like 100%. You wouldn't have thought like a feature film in the 90s compared to like the Ape Escape score. They were so disparate, but now it's like, man, these things they feel like the same level of production.
Could you sing, if you can remember, like a melody from a recent game or a score or something that you were floored by?
I like as a musical theater composer, I obviously loved like repetitive motifs, and the one in Spider-Man that just like every 30 seconds is just like it's just like, and it doesn't have to be like this big soaring thing. It's just like you're sitting there playing, and what's cool about the Miles Morales one is that you get that over a drum now, like.
Am I doing?
If you're
punching and kicking and roaming around, punching and kicking and roaming around, punching and kicking and roaming around. They sped up the tempo, so shit's going down. Punching and kicking and roaming around, punching and kicking and roaming around, punching and kicking and roaming around. Sped up the tempo and shit's going down. I'm spinning the webs, I'm web surfing through cities, doing what I do. I got adventures and missions to prove. I gotta stop they villains coming through. I gotta go on Miles Morales now. I'm from New York, I'm from Brooklyn, uptown. I'm from the city, web slinging a hero. Oh no, they coming and I got to clear them. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. They sped up the tempo and shit's going down.
Yeah, you feeling me? No Starker. Miles Morales, no, I am not Peter Parker. From Brooklyn, never been from Queens. And I'm over here at my deli, yeah, you know what I mean. Over here saving the world, doing everything. Saving the girls, saving the boys, saving everyone, no matter the pronouns. Yeah, keeping it good, saving the whole world. Yeah, I probably should. Yeah, I'm the twirl, cause I'm
punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. They sped up the tempo and shit's going down.
Hey.
Sped up the tempo like Romeo, going in like I was Nomeo. I got the tempo, I'm going, bro. When I'm hanging with all my bros, coaching, kicking, and roaming around. When I'm gonna be making a big sound. When I'm going on the beat, I go pound, 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 pound. All the games that I remember were heaven, but the one I played in middle school was Final Fantasy Heaven. Final Fantasy 7. Sorry, I was a beatboxing and my brain's all a little over the place. But man, I remember the punching and kicking and roaming around when on my face. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around.
Punching and kicking it, roaming around. Just punch it up the tempo and then going down. Punching and kicking, roaming around. Punching and kicking, roaming around. Punching and kicking and punching and kicking and roaming around and punching and roaming, punching and kicking and
Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around. Punching and kicking and roaming around.
That's fun.
That's pretty cool.
There's a game I'm playing called City Skylines where you
Right,
create your own city, and kind of like Sim City type of
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
And it when you were mentioning like the music playing in Spider-Man where you're like flying around and you like kind of like the vibe of the city and they put that trap beat underneath it a little bit to like help with this generation.
Yeah.
Especially because trap is like really big for now. I'm thinking about in City Skylines, like when you're building the city and you just let it play out and you're just watching the like creation that you created getting bigger.
Yeah.
The music is like beautiful, like violins and like string instruments going like like it's like opening, like the sun is rising in your city and it's perfect music and it makes you like want to play more and be more invested in what's going on.
The cue is so cool, but also the musical cues in games are so cool as a storytelling device.
Crazy.
Lifelong gamer here as well.
Yes, nice.
Animal Crossing, the newest one,
Nice,
sticks out. Like
yeah.
even before, when you start the game, the music for the whole game is like the same. Every hour of the day, it's the same.
Yeah.
But then when you level up like your village and your island, you get a town hall, and then the music starts to change by hour. So it like as your town gets more sophisticated, the music gets more sophisticated too.
Awesome.
And then it starts to change by weather and by like PA and PM. It's really cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I know what you mean, directing the player or like
and trying to find like because
audience
again
of
it's
what's happening.
been happening for decades in games, but it's like theater is like as we've discovered these not new technologies, but if we're using QLab and using all of these DAWs, digital audio workstations for composition, it's like man, there's just a whole wealth of things to start utilizing in our theatrical storytelling. And I've had a couple conversations about, like, why are we hearing more distortion? Why aren't we hearing more delay? Like, I mean, it still blows people's minds when I talk about Hamilton's live delay for Burr and wait for it. I was telling a music director about that. Yeah. It's like so crazy that Lack sits there and is like, okay, I can do it with people on stage so that it's never like it's not truly an audio trick yet. I'm just getting people to like do the delay manually, but then like to capture the big drop for Burr, like that is just a true audio delay that they're catching in real time. And some people think it's pre-recorded. They think like, the easiest way to do that is just get every Burr in there and have them recorded. Now you can just like tap out the delay in real time. She's like, no. Like Lack and Nevin Steinberg, it was like, but they're gonna say it differently each night. So we're gonna want the whatever it is. If there's a crack in it, if there's a pitch bend or whatever, it's like we want that sound that they just heard 2 seconds ago to be the thing that's going throughout the house. And I'm just like, 6 years ago when the show goes up, it feels like it's so new, and so for the theater community it feels so new. But it's like I mean, you're hearing delays. That's like for popular music. I mean, that is what's in everything now. So it's just like like how do we? So when you think about pans, when you think about auto tune, right? I did as an audition for Alice's Wonderland to like write the show with these collaborators that I've been working with. I had to do 3 briefs. And one of them was like some like space king who's like lost the beat in his kingdom and has to somehow over the course of the song figure out like make a choice about like how to get the beat back. And somehow in my head, he needed a sidekick. And so, like, to distinguish the two voices audially, like, the king was, like, very, like, man, come on, man. Like, get out my face. Like, he's in the bed, and, like, he's like, I don't want to, man. Like, with all the beats off, man. But then his sidekick is, like, obviously, like, very high-pitched. But then, like, to make this make more sense audially, like, I just put an auto-tune on that high voice. So now it's, like, doing... So cool. And he was like, T-Pain or whatever. But I'm like, it's so cool that, like, if you're going to play with range and just throw an auto-tune on a vocal, like, now that's a character.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? And like that's theatrical storytelling to something that maybe has only really been, and I saw this documentary about T-Pain and he was like when he like first took off, he was on a first class flight with Usher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
talking
he was
about
like,
that.
just talking about
within
this. He
the
was like,
past
oh,
30 minutes.
he was like,
Yeah,
oh man, I feel like a piece of shit after that. Like, he's just like, because Usher's like, you kind of fucked
Yeah.
it up for singers.
Wait,
and
tell
he's
the
just
middle
like,
part,
Yeah, yeah.
just in case people don't know.
I mean, he's there on the plane, and it was like, as I remember, it's like he finds himself, walking up to Usher. And he's just, again, young T-Pain in the music industry. And for some reason, Usher, a real singer without autotune, really decides to just tell this young artist who's like found his way in. It's like, you kind of messed it up for singers, man, for real singers. And then T-Pain's like, and goes and continues to have a great career. But like then in this documentary that I'm watching, kind of like post his big boom there, he's like, oh yeah, no, and that made me feel terrible for like I don't know that I ever shook that.
Right. I read that he was depressed for 2 years afterwards.
Yeah. That's so just
Poor
so,
T-Pain.
but like,
Yeah. But now it's one of the most popular tools for a reason, and it saves thousands of hours in the studio too. And
Yeah.
you're using it as a theatrical
it's an effect.
device.
It's like I mean, if it's painting, it does a different thing. Even if you have, and then T-Pain does his Tiny Desk concert, and you're like, he can sing.
He can
Like it's
sing.
not
Yeah.
a.
That's what I was going to
It's
say.
a-
He's
it's
an
a-
amazing singer. There's no question about it.
It's a
And
differentiation
it is
thing.
right,
I
it's a
also
layer
never-
to put on it.
I never wonder why that's such a big. If the song sounds good, it sounds good. What is this
Right.
test that everybody? Can you really
Right.
say? What do you
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
The myth that more effort equal better product.
Or like,
Yeah.
it's like everyone has their skill set or their way of coming in. Some basketball players can jump really high. Some are really fast. Some have just great floor IQ. You know what I mean? Or some think like a coach, or some are just really tall, or some just have like freakish strength, or whatever wins the game. You know what I mean?
Steph Curry is MVP world champion, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, Giannis, okay, LeBron, okay, like you 6'8", 6'10", dudes.
Exactly.
It's like I got the rock. So
Whatever wins
Right.
the game, whatever makes a song, this test of like, there ain't no real singers no more. Okay, like, do you like the
It
song?
sounds good.
Yeah,
we have different instruments too.
Yeah.
Like it's just, I mean, like you look at Jacob Collier, what he's doing with a laptop and Logic.
That guy's insane.
It's
just-
so cool.
Yeah.
It's the composition is just different now, and like I was just having this conversation with my fiance about the Supreme Court decision, because to think about the governing documents in the 1700s and to think that we should be interpreting them exactly as they were written hundreds of years ago, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like whatever side of it you're on, it just doesn't make sense that with all of the technological advances, with the communication advances, with our advancement as a people, that we would say, oh, the way Mozart musically, right, Mozart, whoever, it's like, well, that's real composition. Or if you look at 1910 singers, it's like, that's real singing.
Right.
It's like you're looking at the governing documents and being like, this is exactly what they meant before we had semi-automatic weapons.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like there's a growth and there's a recontextualization of everything. Like that's what it means to grow as anything, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and if anyone had a growth mindset, like they had their flaws, but those dudes were trying to improve themselves at all times. Benjamin Franklin was like, "Here's every minute of my day" in his book. But I completely agree with you. I think auto-tune should be embraced, and I love that you're using it in your
Future
show.
should be embraced. Here's a question I have. So you are currently in Hamilton.
yeah, I replaced Oak, original Hercules Mulligan James Madison 5.5 years ago, and now I'm back as a principal standby.
Okay, wonderful. So in doing that, what compels you, having already that career like as an actor and like this great Broadway show, what compels you to go, oh, I'm gonna help develop and create this play and go to like Austin, Texas, or where is it?
Kansas City and Austin, Texas.
City
Yeah, are going to be the.
What makes you think? Okay, I'm gonna do this and direct and
Yeah,
write.
yeah.
Why? Why?
Yeah, you have such gall.
How literally dare I? I mean, we just need more. We need more, and I mean, what's great about being on the inside of something like Hamilton is that I really get to see. What's the it's not just Jay-Z that says it, but it's just like, everybody wants to, copy the results, not the process. But it's like, y'all don't show us the process. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so, like, how would we know how a show that's 47 songs long, 2 hours and 55 minutes, how does that work? Like, and a lot of people would love to know, what is that process? Because I'd love to go down that hole and just make more things so that Hamilton isn't the only thing that's captured our imagination theatrically like this. And so, and so purely, I just have always wanted to do it. Like, I wanted to be a writer before I ever thought I could be a performer full time. But I think that everything that I learned as a performer, I was using to help write better. The better I sang, the more my vocal lines when I write would feel synchronous with the character, because I had more facility as a singer. So therefore I would write things that would feel better on people. I wouldn't just kind of like what sometimes still happens is, composers will kind of they're like and they're playing the piano, not thinking about how to actually sing it. They're not thinking about consonants or vowels or anything. They just kind of sing it and not even thinking about like the key of the song. You just kind of write it in one key and then like, we'll figure it out on someone. I wanted to, once I was blessed enough to be a part of Hamilton and seeing how it worked from the inside, seeing how, this becomes this choreographic thing because it came from the lyric, or, this drum happens in this crazy space, and this drop happens because there's not a vocal on top of it. Okay, now I have that piece. This fast rap thing happens and is intelligible to an audience that might not listen to rap that fast because the music isn't different enough to lose them, and it's hitting on something that we've already actually talked about multiple times, so you don't feel like you get lost. So you start to see all those pieces and you say, if I can see these pieces, could I arrange them in a way to continue to make things that are fun to watch and challenge us as human beings? And I, Alice was and is just kind of like my first attempt at that. Like, can I look at the things that I'm learning as an actor doing Broadway, apply them to myself as a composer, and see if something cool comes out of it? And I just think that that's absolutely necessary for theater to be better, just in general, because I think that theater is so magical and it does something a little different than straight up music. It does something a little different than movies. It does something a little different than TV. But I just feel like we are not barely hanging on by a thread, but I want to see a Broadway. I want to see a Broadway first and foremost, and then a theater community worldwide that is like, I want to see Broadway. If there's 41 houses, some or other on Broadway, I want to see shows in every single one of those houses, and every one of them's great, and every one of them has the potential to run 10 years. So we actually have to enact legislation that says, you can't run, it can't just be open-ended because no new thing will come in. Like, I want all of them to be that good, and I want there to be that many great theater makers that have an opportunity to get things out. But that change, I'm learning from the inside, really starts with the written material. You can suggest, and you can equity, you can that, and Broadway League, blah, blah, blah. Once you have written material, there are so many things that got treated as gospel in Kansas that I just realized were things that we wrote and didn't get a chance to like go back to. I'm like, there's a plug when she codes this game and is so proud of herself. Her whole first number is a flex record. She's just like, the show starts and she's like, she's typing, da 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 da. And she's like, "Whoa, yeah, I'm a genius!" And she like does this kind of like cool, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of like like that beat, and then all of a sudden we immediately switch the tempo, and she's in a trap beat, and it's and she goes, "Listen when I tell you I am destined to be great. Everybody wanna talk, but no one stepping to the plate. I'm going up the mountain pedal. Please don't call me Moses. No, this ain't no more supposing. I'ma go and get this bag. It's bigger than any dream or vision I ever had. I see that distress and homie tell me, yo, why you mad? I'm trying to start a
digital revolution. Wipe them servers and reboot them. Alley overthrew the system. You can strap in, cause I'm taking off. I'm a digital and time check off on the boxes. I'm checking off and breaking down every door lock. So you can see the vision or you can be dismissed. There's nothing that matters more than this.
Go ahead, Q. Go ahead, Q.
Yo,
and
that
like,
was
so
dope.
I'm like, and it's this young girl up there doing it, and I'm like, imagine Alice in Wonderland, the way that it's been told,
Yeah.
and imagine her sounding like that on a stage, and now you're seeing little girls that look just like her taking pictures and seeing themselves for the first time in a story like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, that's
Not
that's
just little
important.
girls. What about me?
Little Ralph, you'll have your time.
And what you did was just so like awesome and so powerful. And I wanted to bring up a point that you mentioned earlier about sometimes, you know, if you put hip hop label on something, it
Yes.
could be perceived as corny.
Yeah.
But what you just did, and like, you know, Hamilton and everything just seems so like powerful and like awesome
Mhm.
and like empowering to me that I could never view, you know, like a hip hop stage performance as corny.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit more on that, you know, that conclusion and
Yeah.
that thought about how it can be perceived as corny somehow.
Yeah, it's in the execution. I think the reason that Hamilton works the way it does is because if you go back and you kind of look at how they promoted that, once you kind of track like Lynn's thing at the White House, you know, you track once they got to the public and right up until the time they got to Broadway, they never as an entity said hip hop. Never once. It was always people's perception. It's like, oh, hip hop, da 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 da. They never said it. Because when they did In the Heights, it's the same team that did In the Heights, producer all the way down, right?
Yeah.
When they did In the Heights and they thought, you know, in 2009 Broadway, 2008, 7, kind of all that time, that the cool thing about this is no one's ever really seen hip hop done in this way, right? Like Fila's around. There's some things that are doing it, but like in terms of Broadway narrative structure, we haven't seen hip hop yet. So like, let's let that be the selling point. And Jeffrey has documents. Jeffrey Seller, our producer of Hamilton, produced Rent. Just crazy. Avenue Q. Yeah. So again, like, and that insane there. They did it for like $3.5 million and just recouped it in like 6 months. It was insane. Just great business sense as well. And again, like the business sense of it, I think the audience that is going to see themselves in it in a genre, you got to let them come to it and come to it not because you said, hey, come look at this thing, like dangling, it's hip hop or it's bluegrass or it's whatever. Because when they did that with Heights, it didn't run as long as they thought it could. They thought they alienated, kind of looking back at it, in the aftermath of kind of like 2010, 11, 12, and I think it closed either in 12 or 13, they thought that the cool thing was going to be that it's hip hop. And even though it was great, it alienated audiences that say, well, hip hop's not for me, so I'm not going.
Yeah.
And Hamilton, I mean, I knew people being from Texas. It's like I knew people that were like, yeah, no, I hear it's like this hip hop, you know, Les Mis or hip hop, whatever. And hip hop got to them, not because, again, the organization said it, but other people would, and they would immediately write it off. And you just don't want to, like, that's one piece of it. The other piece is that's a team, Lynn, Tommy, Alex Lacamoire, Andy Blankenbuehler, Jeffrey Seller, that's a team that understands that intention is everything. Because if your pitch is, well, it's got, you know, I love hip hop, so like, let's do something with hip hop, you're already opening the can of worms to do it wrong and to do it where it is going to be corny. Because I have seen so many pieces of hip hop theater that I'm like, oh, that's not what I just did, right? Like, what I just did was Alice exclaiming that I ain't the one to be messed with.
Yeah.
You know, I am the greatest.
Yeah.
And to work through that as an actor theatrically through intention and saying that the form has to be hip hop. Because that is, I'm not going to get out. And as Lynn says with Hamilton, it's like, oh, we needed more words per bar to get out all of the ideas that these people were thinking. And so he knew that the language with which he needed to tell the story was hip hop. That's cool. Most people don't do that. They say, oh, well, I want to do Brigadoon, but with hip hop, you know, or they say, you know, or insert
Into the Woods, Into the Hood. You know what I'm saying? I've seen tons of those regional, like, it's like, and you think in your mind, oh, there's a vibe there, but vibe is not storytelling. And when it comes to theater, storytelling has to be at the forefront. And that's why I think Heights was as successful as it was, being a hip hop thing that was trying to exist in the 2000s when like no one was thinking anyone cared or needed to hear a musical that was, lights up on Washington Heights. Like no one was thinking like that's what we need. And no one was thinking, well, what we really, really need is for that guy to go make a hip hop saga about Alexander Hamilton. No one thought that. But because for Lynn, it starts with Lynn and then branches out into a producer who says, oh, well, I'm the guy that did Rent. I'm the guy that did Avenue Q. Odd things that no one was really asking for. So I'm not going to be the producer that comes in and says, well, you really should get Ben Franklin in there because people are going to love Ben Franklin, which like so many producers will do. And so, yeah, I just think that until we get to a place where hip hop in theater isn't, and now unfortunately with Hamilton, because so many people perceive it as hip hop, even though you got that 12-bar blues there at the top of the second act, it's like, like how much more, like the King song. It's like what other things do I have to write?
Right? Yeah.
Like disappointing for me to like get into the show and be like, oh, like it really, and you're listening to it, it's like it really isn't if just hip hop. So just to say hip hop, like the people that are like that remember the British invasion, like the Beatles, there's like a Sgt. Pepper quote right there in the King song that you'd miss if you advertised it as, oh, this is a hip hop thing.
Yeah.
So it's layered and is a function of we just haven't gotten there yet, because now that Hamilton is so successful, the trap is to say, well, let's just put hip hop on anything, and that'll just make it twice as appealing. Like hip hop on anything that people know. If you go to Hans Christian Andersen and just like looking at any of his stories and say, oh, Lil Mermaid, or whatever it is, it's like, oh no, because you came to the idea the wrong way. Because you said, here's a thing people know, here's hip hop, let's put it together. No. If you read the story, or if you ideate the story and say this story is so hip hop. So that way now you don't have to like yell from the mountaintops that it's hip hop. You're just going to find things that feel authentically hip hop to tell the story and push the narrative forward.
I got something I'm going to pitch you, Q. Okay, so I understand you have the Alice in Wonderland idea, and then you turn it into she's a coder and she's built this world that is like Wonderland, and they're showing kind of her own kind of versions of Mad Hatter and Cheshire Cat and the Red Queen. Now, what I want to say is, how do we get Ben Franklin in there?
I hear your ideas, but we'd love to get a song for Benny Frank in there.
Oh my! People love him. They've seen him on the $100 bill.
It's $100. Like if we could do stuff with $10, imagine what we can do with 100 times.
I've been listening to this rapper Macklemore, and maybe we can have Ben Franklin do some Macklemore type thing.
But you don't want to know that like when we were working on Alice, it was like, oh yeah, maybe we could like cast the show with Spotify rappers. Was a real pitch during the writing, and I was just like, again, like every time, like trying to be like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to tell a story, or are we trying to be like, here's this hip hop? Let's put like people will buy it, because Hamilton exists. Like minus Hamilton, no one would think that hip hop was a selling point for a piece of theater. It's like, what do we like? So as soon as it starts to like dip in, to succinctly answer the question, it's that from theater people right now until we have more things, saying hip hop more than likely means appropriation.
Okay.
More than likely means we're using this to sell more tickets because there's that hip hop thing on 46th Street in New York that people liked. And until it is just, I'd like to see it in terms of our theatrical storytelling. It's like, it's a musical, and that's what Hamilton was. It's like Hamilton, an American musical. It's like, there's no mention of what genre it is in the title, you go to the webpage right now, like Hamilton.com, and it's like, none of that is there. It'll probably be there if they ever sell it for licensing, because again, it's like it becomes a different beast. But you did it the real thing exists, as opposed to like trying to make the real thing through the guise of like who's gonna buy it with what ornaments we can put on it.
It's interesting to, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but it's interesting to like lament the rigidity of that form or that tradition, because I don't know if the rigidity is a good or, because then it like pops when new things.
Yeah.
What you're making me think of is like just a few years, like I think like maybe a year right before, or maybe it's the same exact time before In the Heights, and like a few years before Hamilton is Spring Awakening.
Yeah.
And how everybody was like, I remember how everybody freaked
Touch
out.
me.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Just like that.
I love that show. Just because it was like this 90s, alt rock pop guy made this score.
Duncan.
And it was like,
I did that.
Everybody was like,
funny
whoa.
enough, it's just crazy that you mentioned that. I did Alice by Heart, which was an Alice adaptation that Duncan Sheik and Steven Sater worked on. I did that with them probably a year before the pandemic. Like it was in 2019, and I worked with them on an Alice
Duncan
adaptation.
Sheik, barely breathing Duncan Sheik?
Yeah.
He wrote Spring
did
Awakening.
Spring Awakening.
The musical.
He did all
Yeah,
the music.
with his
Yeah.
partners, Steven Sater. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just crazy that you mentioned that, because we were like in the trenches on their Alice adaptation maybe a year before I started working on Alice.
And
in
you were like,
Wonderland.
hold up, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Because it's very different, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like they're doing a very different sonic thing, and I'm pulling from some of it because some of his pop stuff does feel so like there's like a soul element to it, which then inherently to me leans gospel. It's like I feel like gospel, like it just people in the fields that don't have anything else but their it's like all of these forms of music that then get down to a Duncan Sheik as a singer-songwriter, and he's using all of these things, and then I kind of find my way reverse engineering back to my compositional voice. But so I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just like, it's so crazy you mentioned that.
I just think it's like, most people are not going to get it right. Most people are not going to have much vision.
Right.
And then that sort of makes it so apparent when that something like a Fela, like you talked about, or a Spring Awakening, or that's like my little window of musical theater. That I know. But or like I remember, I don't even know the music of it, but like Passing Strange before that.
Stu.
Show right now that's really hot. It's also Passing something, right?
I don't know.
Michael R. Jackson.
Michael R. Jackson is Strange Loop.
Strange Loop.
Strange Loop. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Strange Loop and Six kind of right now are the bells of the ball in terms of New York theater.
Yeah,
Broadway,
I noticed in a lot of the Duncan Sheik stuff, he uses some really moody chords that I was not aware of.
Everything's got a 6. Everything's got a 9.
Yeah. When you write using pop music for your show, a lot of that is so hook based, right? Coming back to the hook. How do you push story forward while also embracing the hook of pop music?
Yeah, I mean that's something that I'm like learning a little bit from Justin and Benj in a cool way, because like Lynn obviously does it really well too. Like before I came here, I was in the Uber from LGA, and I was just thinking about Say No to This.
Yeah.
And you get that hook twice. Help me out to say no to this. Like you get it just 2 times, but over the course of that 3.5 minutes, you're like, man, this dude really done messed up.
Yeah.
And Justin and Benj do it really well with Greatest Showman. With it's the decision moment for Hugh and Zac Efron. Don't wanna get away, but I stay. Oh, but you gotta play, 'cause I got what you need to do. And I'm like, they're both kind of doing something different, right? Like they're taking the I'm gonna give you the same melody, right? I'm gonna give you the same groove, but what they do so well is but I'm just gonna change the lyric a little bit.
Yeah.
From different perspectives. Like that's such a cool thing that you can take the same, in Benj and Justin's case, you can take the same melody and still have it fit the same. Like you can get the same amount of words in the same syllables. So you're still songwriting.
Yeah.
But to find ways to cycle 4 chords and still get the story out. I mean, it's we're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Because I think that even when you look at a Jason Robert Brown, who was doing something so new and different with Songs for a New World, but it didn't feel like pop structure. It didn't feel like, here's my 8 bars that's the same no matter what. and then here's my internal 16 that's going to change and whatever, it still feels like, oh, I got to give you a million chords to like get the story across, to know, like, how will we know that we've changed? I got an orchestration note for the Caterpillar song in my show, because I wanted to keep it the same, because my experiment was like, can we feel a change even with the same music? And it's the hook was take your foot off the gas, take a sip from this glass, take your mind to a place that's missing. And he ends up going and saying, like, take it nice and easy.
Right.
And so he only sings that hook one time, and then at the end of the song, when they've kind of, the Alice is trying to get through the portal, Caterpillar's like, nah, like, I can't really help you, like, I can't turn the portal on, like, it's not working. She ends up believing in herself and giving that belief to the Caterpillar, and now they're able to go through the portal. And so now they're kind of like trading off on that same hook.
Okay.
Because she then gives him like she's like, she comes out of this rap and says, that way it might be easier for you to chill out, Max, and relax. I like the sound of that. Take a deep breath and calm your mind. You know what I'm saying? So it's like trying to find like these structures of like, that's the same hook, but now you've like changed a little lyric, you changed the intention again, like always going back to intention. Like if you're not thinking about intention, that's where you get in trouble when you're trying to do these pop things. And again, like I don't know if it's just book construction, and Lynn's obviously doing his own book stuff, but I'm like, I took Justin and Benja's monthly course.
Okay.
They did a monthly course for musical theater writing, and I swear to goodness, it's 30 days, right? Monthly, as it is in the name. And for like 15 of the days, we were talking about book construction of a song. Yeah, and I don't even know that they were like aware until they were there and being like, a lot of what we're doing is book, and you would typically have a book writer to do this, but we actually can't write a compelling song unless we know what is charging the moment and how we get out of the moment, where we know we leave off what we have to do in the song and where we need to land. And like, once you know that, then you can kind of do it however you want. Like you can do it like you're Jason Robert Brown. You can do it like you're Stephen Sondheim. You can do it however. And I think kind of what was great about Spring Awakening is that if the whole idea is that it's what Big Mouth is doing now. It's what Inside Out did for Pixar. It's like we're taking this idea of youth and all of the weird, icky feelings that come with youth, and we're just trying to like find little departures of like, we're right up here about, the first time I touched myself, and we're trying to get to the other side of what that means, and we're right up to that first time I had sex, and we're trying to get to the other side of what that is, and we're right up to that time that I'm real upset at my parents, and we're trying to figure out how to get to the other side. Like it's just trying to figure out how to make those little leaps in whatever way you want to.
What's if you can identify it in a way that is that you want to talk about, what do you think is the resonance of the Alice in Wonderland story for you? Like what part of your life do you think that connects to, that makes that story resonate particularly for you? If you could, to get some like a little bit of a biographical background on who Q is.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
tiny story.
She in the first Disney adaptation of it, she's sitting there with her tutor. I think it's either her tutor or her mother. I think it's her tutor. But the significance of it for me is that like she's sitting there, she's like, man, this is kind of whack. I want to do something else. And then do, and you see the rabbit, and she follows the rabbit. And so in watching that adaptation and digging into some of Lewis Carroll's original text, that part, I was like, oh, I see myself in that. And just kind of like, I mean, I'm from Athens, Texas. Like I think we're up to 13,000 people. I graduated with 176 kids. We have one system of schools all the way through. So it's 1 K through 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. There's no multiple schools. We have a bowling alley, a movie theater, and a skating rink for entertainment.
Y'all got a skating rink?
We do have a skating rink.
Yo.
Yeah. But like I can't do what I do now in Athens, Texas at all. You know what I mean? And I hope to, like, now that I've done it, arguably at a high level, that I want to find more ways to do it in small towns. But Alice's desire to, man, whatever this thing is, I just want something else. It's like, I feel that so hard all the time. Even now being in New York City, like I'm just like, yeah, this is nice, but like, what's over there? Oh, hey, a rabbit. Oh, I'll follow the rabbit down the rabbit hole, and get myself into trouble. And that's what's happening. Like, we retained that for Alice in this adaptation, but that's like it's. I don't want to say that it's loosely based because it still feels like it's trying to hit the same idea. At least for me, it's like, if that's what you feel of your life, you gotta choose to be happy with that, or make a choice to restructure it in some way. And that's what Alice does. She falls down the rabbit hole of her video game, because she like codes this thing and is flexing on herself, and then the very next moment is her friends are like, "That's cool." So going and you're just like,
what else is new?
And you're like, what? She's like, okay, well, it's stupid. Rabbit appears. It's like, oh, you want to get away from this, don't you? And she's like, yeah, down the rabbit hole. And now she's trying to like remove the bad code in her game because she shuts her game down and the game's all broken and glitched out. But she finds out it's like, oh, no. Like, the fact that you made this and you thought it was cool, that's it.
Yeah.
You can't want for other people to think it's cool. You can't expect for other people to love it as much as you loved it, right? And I feel like, the first Disney adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, I don't know, really caught the idea of like, okay, if you desire to be somewhere else, you got to be happy with where you're at. She kind of just like falls down the hole and then is like really sad. And then like there's the trial and then she's like back. And it's like, I don't know that I caught the message there.
That's the nihilistic version of it. Yeah. We're looking for a hero's journey here.
Yeah. So
it is important to like sometimes just take a step back, especially if you are in a position that like a few years ago you would be surprised, positively surprised that you'd be in now, right? If you're in that position, I think our brains are wired to, and just from a community and everything, just want more. Like, what's the next thing? What's
always.
Like, or is the grass greener on this side? Let me try that. Let me see this and see that. Instead of like being like, let me take them to perspective where I am, and is this awesome? Do I want to push myself more? Of course, that's awesome. We should all be doing that too. But it's also good to like take a little pause and be like, is the area where I'm at good?
It's so cool to get that feedback from other people too, who you haven't seen in a while, who are looking and be like, wow, it's so cool to know that you're doing this. Because sometimes you just don't notice that stuff on your own journey, right?
And like for Alice, it's like if you go on the other side of the grass and you see that the grass is like super green, you're like, yo, I'm so dope because I found this greener pasture. Guys, look at how cool I am because I discovered this. And like, yeah, whatever. And you're like, oh, so I guess it's not cool. No. It is still cool because you thought it was cool.
Exactly.
Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green.
Yo, sometimes I go and I look on the side of the fence. I look over at the grass and I say, well, hence, that grass looks green. Know what I mean? It looks so clean. I feel so down in the dumps, looking at my own damn sod, and I think I want that other grass. Oh my God. But looking down, it looks so nice and green. I think I live my life so nicely.
See that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green.
Sometimes you gotta take a step back, take a look at your life, see what's going on. Sometimes you gotta see yourself in a movie. Jeff Bridges, Call You Tron. Over here looking good, looking at your life, looking at a clock and seeing like where you progressed at, and seeing where you've been, seeing if you achieved your dreams, seeing if you're bursting, stretched out to the seams. Seeing if you feeling good, is it greener? We don't know. to yourself, you need to be cleaner now.
Sometimes you can see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green.
The grass is green.
The grass is green when you're not feeling your highest. Inside of all our brains, we got a novelty bias. You gotta look around and see the things. See all the joy life brings. It's so nice when you look at it and you are feeling so legit. It's you wanna go and take it for a ride. Go to Texas, go to LA. The grass is greener on the other side. But that's not always true. You gotta get down, look all around, and do not be always in a frown.
When I was 7, I picked up the pencil. Said I wanna be an artist. I wanna go get it. When I grow up, I'm gonna have that life. And now I'm grown up and I have that life. And I look at my eyes and I can't believe. Sometimes I get tired. Sometimes I have greed. Sometimes I don't be thankful. Sometimes I don't appreciate. But man, if I was 7, I knew this. Now I'd be going crazy, man. Sometimes you don't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you don't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. Oh, the grass is green.
The grass is green right where you are. You are there. Sometimes you gotta know that you are right where you are supposed to be. Supposed to be. You are right where you are supposed to be.
Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. See that the grass is green. The grass is green. The grass is green. You can't see that the grass is green. The grass is green. Sometimes you can't see that the grass is green.
So green.
That song would have been better if Benjamin Franklin was here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. James Quinton Johnson, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the North Coast Podcast. You can follow us at North Coast NYC on all social media and follow us at northcoastnyc.com.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James, for rushing on the cue.